Gurave Namah. Om Gurave Namah. Om Gurave Namah. Namaste, everybody, and welcome to another video examining the chart of Meghan Markle and, by association, Prince Harry. I have completed 3 videos in a series on Prince Harry, and this is the second video in a series on Meghan Markle. And the charts I have in front of you here are the D1 charts for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and the D9 charts for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. So the D1 and the D9. You can think of the D1 charts as the more superficial charts of the current life, the life course of this lifespan, current life we're living. The D9 is the deeper karmic imprints that guide us through this life. And there are even deeper charts that speak to the karmas of our past life and how those karmas transmute to our present life. But that's a very deep analysis beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. Today I want to focus on the D1, D9 relationship between this spouse, between this couple, between these spouses. And I've already explained in the video on Prince Harry, part 3, the really exceptional compatibility in their charts, in the D9 to D1 charts. I want to review that, and I also want to point out some other aspects in terms of their compatibility. So to recap what I said in part 3 of the Prince Harry video series, there is a really beautiful compatibility. And beyond compatibility, it's not just compatibility. You see the karmic imprint of each of these spouses in the other's chart. In other words, you can see Prince Harry in Meghan's chart. You can see Meghan Markle in Prince Harry's chart. And that shows a destiny. That shows that they were meant to be together. With any couple, we expect to find some connection through the D9 chart. But this connection is strong. It's very strong. And the way we look at that is that we find the marriage, that we find the spouse in the D9, and we examine that sign and the trines to that sign. So whichever is the house of marriage, and in terms of the first, second, third, fourth marriage, we find that spouse and we expect that there will be a compatibility, there will be a connection. So in Meghan's D9 chart, as I have reviewed in the Prince Harry video, the 7th house of the D9 is the first marriage. The 2nd house of the D9 is the second marriage. This is the first marriage. This is the second marriage. So, and there is a derivation of that, which has to do with the fact that when the first marriage ends, it ends through a breakage that happens in the 8th house. And then for the second marriage, we look to the 7th from the 8th to see the spouse, the second marriage. Now, if there's a third marriage, we look 8. We look. We say that the breakage of the marriage happens in the 3rd house, second from the house of the second marriage, and then it is the opposite of that. The 9th house is the 3rd marriage. So the 7th house is the first marriage, 2nd house is the 3rd, second house is the second marriage, the ninth house is the third marriage, and so on. The fourth house is the fourth marriage, and the ninth house is so the 10th goes to the fourth, so the fourth house is the fourth marriage. But here in Meghan's chart, Harry is the second marriage, right? Harry is the second marriage, so Harry is found here in Meghan's chart. Not just the sign Leo, but Leo and its trines. So Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries, right? This is what I showed in the chart. So these three signs, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries. Now, if we look at Harry's D1 chart to look at this to see if there's a connection, we see the connection right away because Harry is a Sagittarius rising. So Harry's rising sign is in the trines, and then we look for planets on top of that. So in Meghan's trines to the second marriage, you have the Sun, the Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. And in Harry's chart, you have the Sun, the Moon, and Jupiter. So incredible connection, right? I've shown this already, but I just wanted to recap because I wanted to show you through the actual D1 and D9 charts. If we take Harry's chart, Harry's D9 here, assuming Meghan is the first marriage, I think Meghan is the first marriage. So we take the seventh house of the Navamsha, seventh house of the D9 chart. This is the D9. Remember, this is the D9 chart. Seventh house is the first spouse, and so we look at Pisces and trines to Pisces, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio, right? So here we have Meghan in Cancer. If we look at the D1, just like we looked at from the D9 to the D1 this way, we can look at the D9 of Harry to Meghan's D1. And you have Cancer, you have Scorpio, and you have Pisces. So right away, there's the same trines, right? Harry's first marriage is Pisces. Now you look at the planets. For Harry, you have Rahu, Saturn, and Mercury. And in Meghan's chart, you have Rahu and Mercury, right? So you have Rahu and Mercury. Those are connecting planets. And in addition to that, even though Saturn isn't in the trines, it is conjunct the Lagnesh. The Lagnesh is the moon. Moon rules Cancer. So even Saturn in Harry's chart is connected to the Lagnesh of the spouse. So incredible connection. That is a very strong karmic connection. Now, if you look more superficially at their charts, if you look at the chart, the D1, this is the D1, right, of Meghan. This is the D1. D1 means the main chart, the Rashi chart, the chart that is the thing that, we calculate when we enter in the birth time, and it's the chart that people most know most commonly. Meghan being Cancer rising and Harry being Sagittarius, this is not a compatibility that this doesn't show compatibility because Cancer is 8th from Sagittarius. So this is what we call a 6-8 relationship from Lagna to Lagna. This is a 6-8 relationship, meaning 8 signs this way from Sagittarius to Cancer, and then 6 signs this way. So 6 and 8, these are not favorable numbers. The 6th house and the 8th house, these are not feel-good houses. These are difficult houses. So from Lagna to Lagna, there's no real strong compatibility. If we look at the moon, sign, Harry has a moon in Aries, Meghan has a moon in Virgo. Again, what do we see here is a 6-8 relationship because the moon from Aries to Virgo is 6, and from Virgo to Aries is 8. So it's a 6-8 relationship from the moon to the moon, it's a 6-8 relationship from Lagna to Lagna. Okay, now let's look at Venus, because Venus helps us understand the compatibility from perspective of intimacy. And so Venus is in Leo in Megan's chart. Venus is in Virgo in Harry's chart. So this is a 212 relationship because Virgo is second from Leo, and Leo is 12th from Virgo. So it's a 212 relationship, which is, again, not a good compatibility. So what's interesting about this is the fact that on the surface view of things, it would appear that they're not that compatible. And this is what's confusing to the outsider, even close family members, close friends, but outsiders to the actual kind of inner coupledom here, is that people on the outside say, this seems odd. This is an odd relationship. They don't seem compatible at all. His personality is this XYZ. Her personality is something quite else. And then people speculate, oh, it's not going to last. They just don't seem like that kind of couple that will last. It'll break at some point. Well, actually, you haven't done your research. If you think that, you haven't done your research, because from a Jyotish perspective, what you see here is a superficial incompatibility and a very deep karmic level destiny of this couple. And actually, it can turn out to be a blessing that you have superficial incompatibility, but a very deep connection. That can be a blessing because of your deep connection, you learn to grow into the relationship through the discomfort, through the challenges. You learn to become a better person, because the superficial differences in the way you emote, in the way you communicate, your so-called love language, and so on, you overcome those differences and you grow from them. In a way, you transcend them because of the deep karmic compatibility. On the other hand, you might have a couple where you look at the D9 charts and there is very little connection, but on the surface, they're extremely compatible. The moon signs are in trines. The Venus is in trines or in a 1-7 relationship, or maybe even in the same sign. Those are all compatible um, positions. The Lagnesh, the Lagna, they may be very compatible. They're in good positions in the D1 charts. But without the connection in the D9 chart, it's precarious. Maybe you have a great love life. Maybe you have great sex and you really enjoy each other physically and from that perspective. And there are marriages that are based in that kind of enjoyment and so on. And maybe they last, but it's harder because that superficial compatibility only goes so far. It only lasts so long. It may not incur a huge amount of suffering. What may happen is you have fun, you had fun together, there was a compatibility, but then your planetary periods change and you all of a sudden feel bored. You feel you didn't do the work. You didn't do the work in the relationship to deepen the relationship because there was so much superficial compatibility to begin with. So it sort of runs its course and you end the relationship. In fact, having this kind of incompatibility in the surface layer, of the planetary energies in the D1 chart, with a very strong compatibility in the D9s, this leads to um, an unbreakable bond. This is what I see in their charts. Really, it's kind of an unbreakable bond, and one of the other reasons for that is that in Harry's D9 chart, the seventh house, which represents the first marriage, has Rahu. And as my guru, as my teacher, Sanjay Rath has taught, he has said that no matter how many marriages you may have one marriage, two marriages, three marriages. The point at which the marriage house for whichever marriage it is contains Rahu or Ketu, so either Rahu or Ketu, or it falls on the Rahu Ketu axis, that is your last marriage. That is the final marriage for you. You typically don't go beyond that. So once you hit the Rahu Ketu axis in the marriage charts, looking at the seventh, going to the second, then going to the ninth, and then going to the fourth, and so on. As soon as you hit the Rahu Ketu axis, that's when you stop. Now, there are exceptions. There are exceptions, especially if Jupiter is in the marriage sign of the sign subsequent to the Rahu Ketu axis. That's a little bit more of an advanced discussion. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, once you hit that Rahu Ketu axis, you don't move, you don't change from that relationship. Even if the relationship ends, you never find a new spouse. That's the idea. So here we have in Harry's chart, the very first marriage has Rahu Ketu in the axis, which means that there's a very strong likelihood that there is only one spouse in the lifetime. In Meghan's chart, in Meghan's D9, we see that there's no Rahu Ketu in the first marriage, like in the seventh house. And then in the second marriage, uh, again, there's no Rahu Ketu axis. So it doesn't mean that the relationship will end. Really, this Rahu Ketu axis should be, if it's in at least one of the spouses' uh, Navamsha marital sign for that marriage, then the marriage will sustain because that spouse is going to make sure it stays, it sustains. If both spouses don't have Rahu Ketu and they don't have a strong connection, meaning the trines, we should see the trine connection, but we may not see all the planetary number of planets in the trines that are matching the way we see with Meghan and Harry. So in that case, it's possible that it's not the final relationship. There is more destiny to be had with other people. So I wanted to show you this. It's very interesting. Incompatibility in the D1s with a tremendous amount of compatibility in the D9s. And this is when you have this situation, this is when people, outsiders, they scrutinize the relationship, and especially somebody with such a public eye. But even in families, in regular householder families, when this kind of connection happens, the outsiders to that, but the insiders of the family, like family relations, they may look upon this coupledom and say, "Oh, this is not going to last. They're so different in their personalities, and we've known our son our whole life, or we've known our daughter our whole life, and we know that they're nothing like that person. So they're not going to be able to stand this person. They're so different." What they're not seeing is that deep karmic imprint in the Navamsha that's coming from a past life. The destiny is unfolding in this life from a past life. And it's not to say it's the same person from a past life. It's not to say you found exactly the same person that you were with in the past life. You may find somebody who matches the karmic imprint. There's that familiarity. Maybe it is the same person, or maybe it is a familiarity, a different soul that you've connected to in this life that matches the experience you've had, the planetary energetic experience you've had in the past with a spouse or a number of spouses. And this is what we see here. So I think a surprise to many that Meghan and Harry have survived to date. They haven't, despite the stresses and the strains and the pressures They haven't broken. And maybe that is surprising to some, but if you're very connected and very in tune and you have a depth of perception, you will see, and if you study Jyotish, you will see that there is something quite unbreakable about this bond. So that concludes this video. In my next video, I want to focus again on Meghan's chart. And as I alluded to in the first video on Meghan, there is this Saturn, Jupiter planetary war that needs to be understood. It's very, very significant and it needs to be unpacked. Okay, stay tuned. Namaste.